You've reached American History Hotline. You ask the questions, we get the answers. Leave a message.
Hey there, American History Hotliners. Your host, Bob Crawford here. Happy to be joining you again for another episode of American History Hotline. You're the ones with the questions. I'm a guy trying to get you some answers. And keep those questions coming. The best way to get us a question is to record a video or a voice memo on your phone and email it to americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. That's americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. Okay, now to today's question. This one comes from Ellen in Monterey. Who was the most successful / damaging spy in United States history? This is a great question because the CIA, everything about it is kind of shrouded in mystery, right? That's the whole point. And so we don't hear, occasionally you hear about a great CIA success, but I'm sure there's a lot we don't know about. And I bet there's a lot of counter spies that we never hear about. So who could help me answer this question? Well, I think we found the perfect person. She is a former CIA agent who spent 9 years as a targeting officer with the CIA's Directorate of Operations Counterterrorism Center, Brittany Butler. Miss Butler is also the author of The Syndicate Spy, a Juliet Arroway novel. Brittany, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we get to our listener's question, I have to ask, how did you become a CIA agent? I mean, what is the process? Did you apply for the job or were you recruited?
Yes, that's a great question. So I was recruited out of college. My junior year of college, I did an internship out at the American Embassy in Paris, France. And there I was involved in some passport fraud cases. Part of our job at the consulate section is to both interview candidates for visas and then also to process them and passports and things like that. And I came across an individual who should not be trying to get into the country that was. And because of my knowledge of Arabic naming conventions, I pinpointed him as a terrorist trying to get into the country. I didn't know it at the time, but my bosses at the American Embassy were undercover CIA officers. And they suggested to me, hey, have you ever thought about applying at the CIA? And I was like, no, absolutely not. But they encouraged me to do that. And I did. And I was recruited to be a case officer. And a case officer is the officer at the CIA who is in charge of recruiting and handling our spies overseas. And I transitioned kind of from that position to the targeting officer position, which is, I can go into that more detail if you'd like.
I want to ask, you said handling the spy.
Yeah.
What does it mean to handle a spy?
Yeah. So we provide something called requirements for our spies, right? Our assets. We don't really call them spies. We call them assets at the CIA. And requirements are like questions that our policymakers have, questions that we might have about, a particular threat. Those are the requirements that we send to our officers overseas, the case officers that handle the spies, handle the assets. And they basically just ask them these questions or they task them to acquire the information. So that's kind of the handling of the spy on a day-to-day basis. Also, handling a spy. So that's more of the work aspect. The nitty-gritty kind of administrative stuff is also what we call handling a spy. So that's, paying the spy, assessing their motivations, working with them to ensure their longevity, to make sure that they're being safe in terms of, their collection of the information that we're tasking them with. So that's kind of the handling part.
And then a targeting agent?
Yeah. So targeting officer is someone that helps to target for potential recruitment operations. So helping to devise who that next potential source would be. And along with that comes identifying their weaknesses, ways that we can potentially manipulate them into working for the US. And then also targeting for in support of our drone program or high value target operations in which we are targeting terrorists in the war zones. So targeting officer kind of does both jobs.
I think television and movies gives us this one idea about how the CIA works. Like there's a solo spy who's infiltrated a terrorist cell. And it's pretty much up to him or her alone to bring down the whole organization. How does it really work?
Yeah, so it's a lot of very committed people with their own specialties all working together. So you've got somebody from NGA, the National Agency. You've got someone from NSA, the more of like the SIGINT focused, signals intercepts focused individuals who their specialty is to, intercept communications between sources or foreign policy people. And they all kind of work together to work on a particular operation. So everybody has their own specialty. At the CIA, our specialty is human. So what we're bringing to the table are their human sources. They are reporting on, a foreign leader or reporting on a terrorist organization. The NSA component, they're listening in on the conversations between those individuals. And then you've got NGA who's doing the analysis of what does the geospatial landscape look like at a particular location, whether that be a foreign embassy or a terrorist bed down location. All those components kind of working together. And then, of course, there's the action elements, which is the military, the special activities division guys who are actually doing the work of breaking down the doors and going after the targets. So, it's a lot of people all working together to achieve a goal rather than just one dude or one girl acting like James Bond.
So our question is, who is the most successful spy? So given the secrecy surrounding the CIA, are we even allowed to know who that person is?
No. The most successful spy like that the CIA has recruited?
Sure.
Or
I think what Ellen is asking is both, right? Who was the most successful spy that the United States ever had? And then who was the most successful spy against the United States?
Yeah, so I honestly do not know who the most successful spy is that the CIA has ever recruited. And I don't think that information is unclassified. I think it's probably like only a select few people know that. As far as the most successful or damaging spy in the United States history, the most successful foreign spy, I would say, is probably Julius or Ethel Rosenberg. They were American citizens that spied for the Soviet Union. They passed nuclear weapons secrets from the Manhattan Project. And their espionage really helped to accelerate the Soviet atomic bomb program. And that kind of shifted the balance of power during the Cold War. So I would say that they are some of the most damaging spies in U.S. history. Probably like one of the most famous domestic spies is Aldrich Ames. He was a CIA officer who actually spied for the KGB from 1985 until his arrest in 1994. He exposed, I think it was like 100 CIA operations and led to the deaths of, 10 U.S. intelligence assets. So what that means is he divulged the identity of who we were working with in Russia to collect information on the Soviets. And he was a bad dude. Another guy that you might be interested in learning about is Robert Hansen. He was a FBI counterintelligence agent, and he also spied for the Soviets from 1979 to 2001. So he did that for quite a long time, and he divulged details about U.S. nuclear strategies, counterintelligence operations, the identity of double agents. He did a lot of damage.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human. T-Mobile is reinventing business internet with super broadband. Whether you run a small office or a factory of 500, connection is everything. Powered by America's fastest 5G internet plus Starlink. Super broadband from T-Mobile reaches every zip code in the U.S. Super broadband, a new era of business internet. Visit superbroadband.com to learn more.
Fastest 5G network based on analysis by Ookla Speed Test Intelligence data 2H 2025. Speeds vary due to local network characteristics and management. Satellite requires hardware installation. Clear view of the sky with 36-month commitment.
Aging is real, and so are the benefits of new Vital Proteins Collagen Sparkling Water. Because around the age of 30, your body needs backup to keep your collagen up. So get your daily glow up, now in 3 fresh flavors: strawberry blossom, lemon lime, and blood orange. Improved skin health in as little as 30 days thanks to collagen peptides. Cheers to that. So you can stay vital, stay you. Visit vitalproteins.com to learn more and where to buy. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Jardiance has a big story to tell. Discover Jardiance empagliflozin 10 or 25 milligram tablets. Visit Jardiance.com, call 1-888-968-6648, or talk to your doctor to see if Jardiance is right for you.
A little pill with a big story to tell.
If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
How did these spies? I mean, Robert Hansen was a double agent, right? I mean, but how did they infiltrate? I mean, how do you pull that off to infiltrate the United States intelligence agency that deeply?
So, in the case of Robert Hansen, he was an FBI counterintelligence agent, right? So he had access to the highest levels of classified information. So he's part of his job, ironically, as a counterintelligence agent is to root out the double agents.
I guess, Brittany, sorry to interrupt. I guess I'm asking, how was he turned?
I don't know. Well, so I think only the Soviets probably know that because they're the ones who recruited him. So most of these guys, their motivation is money. So like in the case of Aldrich Ames, he acquired, I think it was like $2.5 million from the Soviets. And so he was primarily motivated by money. And it really comes down, I think, probably to money and then also ideology. It might be that these guys they've been in the bureaucracy for too long. They're discouraged with their careers, aren't going anywhere. They want to feel like their work is important again. Whenever I know, all I can speak to is how the CIA does it, not really how the KGB or the Russians do it. And it's more about like trying to make them see that their goals align with yours. So my specialty, having worked at the CIA, was counterterrorism operations. And so that was a matter of working with terrorists who I could help align what they wanted with what we wanted. So like in Afghanistan, for example, or Iraq, they wanted a more peaceful, more stable government, right? And so if we could meet each other on that common goal, we could achieve, great things together. So, and then obviously like the money helped. Or if they had a particular health issue, let's say like one guy we worked with, his wife couldn't get pregnant. And so we were able to set him up with fertility treatments in a different country. And that's how we got him to kind of, work with us. So it depends on each agent. I don't know what the specific things were that the Russians did to turn these agents, but I would assume it had something to do with ideology, money, things like that.
This is American History Hotline. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Today, my guest is a former CIA agent and the author of The Syndicate Spy, Brittany Butler. We're talking about who were the most successful and most damaging spies in United States history. What is it like, with all that you've experienced and all the knowledge you have from your work with the CIA, to be in civilian life and going to the grocery store and taking your kids to school and interacting with teachers and doctors and people on the street, and like how does your CIA experience kind of filter into the way you experience daily life? I mean, you
Yeah.
have to be good at reading people, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. So this is something that I actually talk about a lot on my podcast, Spy Girls. So me and another woman who used to work at the CIA, Tracy Walder, she's also a former FBI special agent. Her and I have transitioned obviously to civilian life, and we're both mothers, and we talk about on the podcast just like what that transition has been like for us and how we apply some of those capabilities and those skills to our current life. I have a teenager, so my kids
That
range
was my
from
next question.
yeah, yeah. So my kids range from 13 all the way down to 4. I have all boys.
Oh, I have a
And
13-year-old son. You got to give me some tips here.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, so my big thing is baselining. So in order to tell whether or not someone is lying, you first need to baseline them to understand what their mannerisms are when they're telling the truth and how to differentiate when they're telling the truth from a lie. So my son, obviously I know him really well. So I baselined him and I know when he's telling the truth and when he's not. And
Okay, what does it
I'm
mean to
not
baseline somebody?
yeah, so baseline so whenever, like, you ask that so, for example, in the polygraph, so whenever you get your security clearance at the CIA, you have to undergo a polygraph, and at the polygraph, one of the first questions they ask you once you're hooked up to the machine is your birth date, where you're born, who your parents are, stuff that they know you're gonna tell the truth on, and that's when they essentially baseline you. They figure out, these are your mannerisms when you're telling the truth. And then they start to ask you questions. And if your body language says something different than what's coming out of your mouth, so you're looking at like nonverbal cues, that's an indication that you could be lying. So one of the things, for example, that we've noticed throughout, our work is like rubbing your eyes actually. So like if someone is not telling the truth, yeah, the rubbing. So think about like a baby crying, right? Something that they do is they rub their eyes, and it's like a coping mechanism to soothe yourself. And it turns out adults use this same kind of coping
I do this all
mechanism.
the time.
Okay,
I
well, who knows if you're
because I'm just so stressed
um
out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that definitely could well, it's an indication, not necessarily you're lying, but that you're in distress. And so you wanna pay attention to that. And, like, if you're trying to get, let's say, your teenager to, like, tell you the truth, how I kind of start things, if you can't start out just asking them questions. Did you do this? Were you there? And blah, blah, blah. You have to like approach it kind of a roundabout way, I would advise, by saying stuff like, so what's most concerning to you today? What's got you upset right now, buddy? Like what? And if you just try to get them to start admitting things and just get them talking. And I think that was a tactic I kind of learned in debriefing and elicitation training, was just, how do I get my source? How do I get my detainee talking? And that's definitely something I have used on my teenager.
Brittany, for a historian, it's hard to think about the CIA and not think about the Cold War. Can you talk about some of the great successes of the CIA during the Cold War?
So I think that probably the fact that we were able to safeguard our nuclear program during that time, even though we had spies, like these Soviet spies like Julius and Ethel Rosenberg and Alder James, Robert Hansen, the fact that we were able to safeguard our program, I think is a pretty um I think is pretty awesome. A lot of that comes down to compartmentalization. So at the CIA, you don't have access to information unless there's an absolute necessity. So just because I worked at the CIA, I think it's a misconception that I have access to everything, that I know what's going on in China or Russia or whatever. But it really is dependent upon what your job is at CIA. So if I'm working like, for example, I worked in the CIA's Counterterrorism Center and Pakistan-Afghanistan division. There would be no reason why I would need to know what was going on with Russia operations. So I think going back to the Cold War, it's like one of those things where things were highly compartmentalized. And so people who did not have what we call like a need to know at the CIA did not have access to the information. And so I think that limited the ability for our clandestine operations to be compromised because we kept that information so tightly concealed.
What happens when a spy is captured?
It depends on the country. Sometimes whenever we're operating under diplomatic immunity, so like if you're working undercover, but you are working under the cover of the State Department, you will have a diplomatic passport, you'll have diplomatic immunity, and the worst that can happen is you're just sent back to the United States, back to your country. There are obviously other situations where that is not the case, like in Russia or China, where they will detain you. And it's a case by case situation on if you get tortured, or there have obviously been cases where CIA officers have been killed. So yeah, it definitely depends on the situation.
Brittany, can you envision a future world where there are no spies? Or do you think there will always be a need for espionage?
Well, I think if you go all the way back to like the Roman Empire, there's always been espionage. There's always a need to gather information, to collect it, to use it, to make informed decisions. I think especially whenever it comes to foreign policy, it's absolutely critical to be able to collect information and carry that kind of back to policymakers. I mean, that's one of the CIA's main functions, is to develop a product called the Presidential Daily Brief. And that is compiled by basically gathering together all of our intelligence from all over the world and highlighting the most important bits for our senior policymakers to make informed decisions. So I don't think you want to start making decisions without that information. They're not going to be very informed. So yeah, I do think there'll always be a need for it.
Brittany Butler, former CIA agent and author. Her most recent book is The Syndicate Spy, and I have it on good information. There's another book coming, so look forward to that. Brittany, thank you for joining us today on American History Hotline.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to American History Hotline, a production of iHeart Podcasts and Scratch Track Productions. The show's executive producer is James Morrison. Our executive producers from iHeart are Jordan Runtaw and Jason English. Original music composed by me, Bob Crawford. Please keep in touch. Our email is americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. If you like the show, please tell your friends and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Feel free to hit me up on social media to ask a history question or to let me know what you think of the show. You can find me at Bob Crawford Base. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.
What's up, fam? It's sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together.
We're breaking down the biggest headlines, the viral moments, and the stories everyone's talking about across women's sports.
From game-changing performances to culture-shifting conversations, we'll give you our takes, our debates, and a few laughs along the way.
Because everyone watches women's sports. Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Joy 101, and listen now. Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb is presented by CVS.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke, and Yerin.
Have surprises?
Many surprises. Welcome to the Sweet 305 podcast, where the group chat comes to life.
What up? You're the only person I know that loves a yellow Starburst.
It's lemonade.
This is Sweet 305. Here, oversharing is encouraged. Listen to Sweet 305 with Lele Pons on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with Michael Bublé. After Kevin's recent interesting confession about Michael, we figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they were like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal.
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.